Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to our last episode. I'm Priscilla Nelson, and today I'm here as always with my wonderful co-host, Mónica Ospina. We've got a big topic for you today. We're going to dive deep into the world of mining's transformation and how the industry is adapting to meet this soaring demand for critical minerals, all the while tackling the complex challenges of environmental responsibility and social justice.
That's right, Priscilla. And we got a lot of ground to cover today. From the cutting edge technical innovations the industry needs to the importance of engaging with communities. We also revisit frameworks we have been exploring, like the donut economics and how they can guide the future of mining. And of course, we'll be bringing insights from two very important voices in this field, Glenn Sigurdson and Luke Danielson, who have been instrumental in shaping the dialogue around governance, accountability, and long-term sustainability in mining. Or, as Luke likes to put it, how to mine without losing your friends or your planet. That's fantastic, actually. I really like it.
Luke really has a way with words, doesn't he? But he's spot
He
on.
does.
He's spot on. Mining has a massive role to play in the global energy transition, but it can't be business as usual. If the industry wants to remain relevant, and let's face it, even popular, it needs to transform. And that transformation isn't just about shiny new technologies. It's also about rethinking how mining companies engage with the people and places that are affected by their operations.
And as Glenn has pointed out, this isn't about avoiding conflict or getting through the next regulatory hurdle. It's about building genuine, long term relationships with communities, especially indigenous groups, that are based on trust, mutual respect, and shared benefits. If mining companies fail to do that, they're going to struggle to get what Luke calls the social license to operate, and without that, well, you are out of the game before you even start.
Yeah, exactly, Mónica. Ah,
Well, let's start with the big picture. The world is undergoing a major energy transition. We're shifting away from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. Solar, wind, electric vehicles, all of these technologies rely on critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. But here's the catch. While we need more of these minerals, we can't mine them the old destructive ways. The dig now, worry later model doesn't fly anymore, especially not with communities, regulators, or investors.
and this is where the concept of donut economics comes into play, it seems to me. And that really reframes how we think about mining's role in the world. Developed and published by economist Kate Rayworth in 2017, the donut model offers a vision for a sustainable economy, one that ensures that everyone has access to life's essentials without overshooting the planet's ecological boundaries. And yes, before you say it, Mónica, I did just use that word sustainable, even though I promised not to use that word, which has no clear definition.
No more of the S word. Let's just stick to talking about how mining needs to balance human needs with environmental limits. And donut economics is a perfect way just because it asks the tough questions. How can we extract resources in a way that benefits people and doesn't destroy the environment? How do we mine responsibly without pushing the planet past its limits? Mining has traditionally operated outside the donut. Let's be honest. Either overshooting environmental limits or failing to meet social needs, or sometimes, sadly, both.
Exactly. And this is a massive challenge. On one hand, the demand for critical minerals is skyrocketing, driven by the shift to renewable energy. But at the same time, mining companies have to figure out how to meet this demand without wreaking havoc on the planet. And that's where technical innovation comes in. We're not just talking about incremental improvements here. We need disruptive innovation, things like reprocessing tailings to recover additional minerals, or automating operations to reduce energy consumption, and using AI to make mining more efficient.
But here's the thing, innovation doesn't just stop at technology. It also has to include how mining companies engage with communities, what I call social innovation. This is where Glenn and Luke perspectives really come into play. They both emphasize that trust is the foundation of any successful project, and I cannot agree more. Communities, especially indigenous groups, aren't just passive bystanders. They are deeply connected to the land, and their priorities often focus on long term stewardship. Mining companies, meanwhile, tend to think in terms of the life of a project, maybe 20 or 30 years. There's a huge difference in the time perception. What do you think?
Yeah. It's not just a matter of perspective, it's a matter of survival in many ways for these communities. If a mining company builds a tailings dam or a processing plant, that infrastructure might last a few decades, but the environmental impacts could last far longer. And this is why legacy mining operations are such a challenge. We're dealing with the aftermath of mining practices from decades ago that didn't account for environmental standards or for the long-term effects of climate change. Old tailings dams, in particular, are at a risk of geotechnical and geochemical failure as climate patterns shift, leading perhaps to more intense storms and unpredictable weather at the least.
And when you combine that with the potential environmental and social impacts of new mining projects, the stakes couldn't be higher. Communities are worried, and they have good reason to be. Mining companies have come with big promises. I have seen this a lot: jobs, infrastructure, economic development, a better life. But when they often leave behind environmental devastation and broken promises, in some cases fractured communities, Glenn has also talked a lot about the importance of collaborative governance. And that's where companies need to shift their mindset. It's not about doing things to communities, it's about working with communities to find solutions that benefits everyone. That's the difference.
And that's such a key point, Monica. Mining companies often come in with a we know best attitude. But
Yeah.
local communities, especially indigenous groups, often have a deep understanding of their local environment and the ecosystems there. If companies ignore that knowledge, they're missing out on valuable insights that could lead to more effective and less harmful operations. And that's something Luke Danielson has emphasized. Mining projects that listen to communities are the ones that are more likely to succeed in the long run.
Yes, I love what you just said. So let's talk a little bit more about remediation and remining. The idea of going back to old mining sites to clean up the environmental damage while extracting more minerals, on paper, that sounds like a win win. You are fixing the problems left behind by legacy mining operations and producing valuable resources for energy transition. But it's not as simple as it sounds. These projects are complex, expensive, and often face significant regulatory and social hurdles.
I certainly do. And the technical innovation required for successful remining is huge. You need advanced technologies to reprocess tailings in a way that's both environmentally responsible and economically viable. You also need new water management systems to ensure that the operations don't drain local water supplies or contaminate nearby rivers. And this is where companies need to invest heavily in research and development. It's not enough to rely on outdated methods. If mining companies are serious about transforming their operations, they really need to be pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah. But here's the thing, Priscilla: technology alone isn't going to save the day. It needs more. And Luke often says you can tech your way out of the social conflict. This innovation needs to be introduced hand in hand with meaningful community engagement. Mining projects, like any mining project, will only work if the local communities are fully on board. And that requires trust. Without trust, these projects will face resistance, delays, or even shutdowns. Distrust of all stakeholders.
And what did Glenn say? Trust is what do you say, a fuzzy word?
Yeah. No, and it's quite a holy grail, I will say, honestly.
Yeah. But as we've seen and talked about, trust is built on transparency. Companies need to be upfront about their plans, their environmental impacts, and their intentions, with regard to benefit sharing. Communities are no longer willing to accept vague promises of jobs and economic development. They want concrete commitments, legal agreements, and crucially, a seat at the table when decisions are being made. And this is something Glenn Sigurdson has been advocating for years: true participatory governance that gives communities real power in shaping the future of mining projects.
Yeah. And speaking of benefit sharing, let's talk about that for a moment. It's no longer enough to say we are bringing jobs. Please, no. Mining companies need to show how those jobs are going to improve the quality of life for local communities. Are the jobs safe? Are they well paid? Are they sustainable in the long run? Or are they
Right.
going to disappear once in the mine closes? Yes. Communities are asking these questions, and me, myself, as practitioner, asking those questions themselves. They have every right to demand answers and honest answers, I will say.
And I like the use of sustainable in that context because they are jobs that will continue beyond the immediate. But it's not just about jobs. We think about infrastructure development, education, healthcare, environmental restoration. These are all areas where mining companies can contribute. But again, these benefits cannot be dictated from above. They need to be developed in collaboration with the community. As Lucas said, the best outcomes happen when communities are empowered to define what they need rather than being told what's best for them.
Yes, very, very true. And this is where the donut economics becomes really relevant. The donut model tells us where we need to operate in the space where human needs are met without overshooting the planet's ecological limits. What an interesting point. Mining has historically been a driver of both economic growth and environmental destruction, but the donut challenges us to think about how mining can actually contribute to human well being and environmental health. It is radical shift in thinking, and it's one that mining companies will have to embrace if they want to survive in the new landscape.
And they are realizing that this shift is already happening, especially driven by investors. And as
Mhm.
investors start paying more attention to ESG criteria, environmental, social, and governance, investors are looking for companies that can demonstrate a commitment to responsibility, not just profitability. They want to know that a company isn't just extracting resources, but is also investing in environmental protection, social justice, and long term viability. Companies that can't meet these criteria are going to find it increasingly difficult to access capital.
Investors are becoming more discerning, and they're recognizing that long term success depends on more than just production numbers. And this is fundamental for us. And mining companies are not the exception. Mining that don't integrate social and environmental concerns into their business models are going to be seen as risky because they are risky. And this is where the industry needs to wake up. If mining is going to play a central role in the energy transition, it has to do so in a way that aligns with the values of transparency, equity, and accountability.
And let's not forget that this isn't just about attracting investment, it's about ensuring that mining projects are successful from start to finish. As Glenn often points out, projects that fail to engage communities early and meaningfully are far more likely to face delays, opposition, and even legal challenges. And this isn't just bad for the company, it's bad for the whole supply chain, especially when we're talking about critical minerals that are essential for technologies like electric vehicles and renewable energy infrastructure.
And the challenges aren't going to get any easier, let's be honest, especially when it comes to permitting. In countries like the US, the permitting process is already complicated and is only getting more stringent as communities demand greater oversight and accountability. And it's not only the US, but I will say worldwide. Companies that don't take community engagement seriously are going to struggle to get permits for new projects, and that's going to slow down the entire energy transition.
And this is where collaboration becomes key. Mining companies, governments, local communities, NGOs, they all need to work together to find solutions that balance the demand for critical minerals with the need for social and environmental justice. The days of mining companies acting as lone operators are over. We're seeing more and more examples of successful projects where all stakeholders are brought into the decision-making process early on, a co-design process. And that's the model the industry will need to adopt going forward.
Totally agree with you. And to bring back to lesson look insights in this podcast, it's clear that this collaborative approach isn't just about avoiding conflict, it's about creating shared value. Mining projects that respect the rights of indigenous peoples, that listen to local communities, and that operate within the planet's ecological limits are the ones that will succeed in the long run. And it's just not the ethical thing to do, it's the smart thing to do.
Absolutely. We've been discussing today and come to see that the future of mining is going to be shaped by both technical innovation and innovations in social responsibility. Companies that embrace both will be well positioned to lead the industry into the future. But those that cling to outdated models, whether in terms of technology or community relations, are going to find themselves left behind.
That is exactly right, Priscilla. And the future of mining is about more than just minerals. And I will say just minerals put all of that together. It's about people, planet, profit to keep businesses. But it can be done only if we are working together. We're in a moment of transformation. What a fascinating moment. And while the challenges are immense, so are the opportunities.
And that's a great note to wrap up on, Monica. And we can continue that on perhaps in a future series of podcasts.
Wonderful.
Yeah, well, thanks to everyone for joining us today. We've covered a lot of ground, but the conversation does not end here. We hope this episode has given you plenty to think about as we continue to explore how mining can both meet the demands of the energy transition and respect communities and the environment and the planet.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. And to you all listeners, remember that the future of mining depends on all of us. Whether you are in the industry, a community member, or an investor, any stakeholder. Stay engaged, stay informed, and let's work together to create a more just and responsible future for mining. Thank you very much.